Welcome to Human Sexuality Bio 301 with me, your instructor, Cynthia Anderson Sanchez. Today we're going to discuss the male reproductive anatomy and physiology. I want you to know that your bodies are very busy, whether you're male or female. Today we're going to be discussing the male reproductive tract, and next time we'll be talking about the female reproductive tract. Now, whether you're male or female, your body's working hard every day from puberty till menopause if you're female, or death if you are male, working hard to prepare your body for reproduction. So we're going to look at what that means and what that looks like. So male and female bodies do different things to prepare for making offspring. Knowledge is power. Knowing what your body is going through helps you to make sense of physical symptoms that you may experience. Also, knowing when fertilization is most likely to happen is very helpful for planning for that bundle of joy. Knowing helps prevent unplanned pregnancies too. For example, when you are knowledgeable, then you can say to yourself, I am in control, I am informed, and I can make informed decisions. So let's take a moment now to look at the male reproductive strategies by Crash Course. I have the URL here if you would like to see this and more videos from Crash Course.
Sex is a big game. I mean, the mental risks alone that we take with our relationships are taxing enough. When is he going to text me back? Am I good enough? What if she doesn't like the real me? But the emotional price we pay for intimacy can almost seem paltry compared to the physical investments that our bodies make in order to reproduce. And the sexes each make this wager differently. The female gamete is, biologically speaking, a big bet. It's like putting all your chips on black. An ovum and a follicle take over a year to develop, and as human cells go, it's huge, about 1/10 of a millimeter, just large enough to be seen with the naked eye. Plus, it requires a whole network of supporting tissues in the uterus while it waits for fertilization, which, if that doesn't happen, then have to be shed and rebuilt a month later. And then there's the commitment. Once an egg has been ovulated, everything in the female reproductive system is dedicated to dealing with that one cell for almost a month. And if it gets fertilized, you're looking at 10 months. So when it comes to playing the reproductive roulette wheel, the male reproductive system takes the opposite strategy. If female gametes amount to a high-stakes bet, the males are basically the penny slots. Human sperm are only about 100,000th the mass of an egg, and they're almost as easy to produce as skin cells. Actually, the process by which they mature is pretty similar. That's because sperm are small and stripped down, not invested in much beyond a nucleus and a tail and some extra mitochondria to fuel the journey. All they have to do is drop their DNA and fall apart. The risk of failure is still there. In fact, with male gametes, the odds are overwhelmingly against any single sperm actually accomplishing its mission. But while the female reproductive system meets this risk head-on with a single big play, the male's tries to beat the odds with sheer force of numbers. Here's a question for you. Why are the most important parts of the male's reproductive system literally left hanging? The testes, the gonads of the anatomical male, are tasked with making male gametes, sperm, and the androgen hormone testosterone. But unlike the ovaries, which are protected inside the body, testicles dangle outside the abdominal cavity in the scrotum. Because, even though sperm may not be terribly big or complex, they're touchy when it comes to temperature. The rate at which they divide, copy DNA, and even feel the effects of some hormones are all diminished at the core body temperature of 37 degrees. So the testes have to be outside the body cavity to reach the lower temperature necessary for proper spermatogenesis, or sperm production. It's a rare instance of sensitivity among what are otherwise pretty hardy and expendable cells. But that's not to say that the testes aren't complex. Each one is divided into about 250 sections called lobules, which are loaded with tightly coiled seminiferous tubules. These tubules are the sperm factories, made of a stratified epithelium surrounding a central fluid-filled lumen. And this this sperm-making work is supported by cells throughout and around the tubules. Among the most important are the Sertoli cells inside the tubes, which nourish developing sperm cells, sort of like how female follicle cells help oocytes. There are also Leydig cells that secrete testosterone, much like the corpus luteum that secretes estrogen. But compared to egg-making, spermatogenesis is, as I mentioned, a pretty cheap and easy process biologically. It's kind of like how your skin cells are produced, with stem cells at the basal layer that produce immature cells, which in turn get forced toward the surface as they mature. But in this case, the sperm develop on the outer edge of the tubule and progress inward toward the lumen. And it all begins with a trigger that, if you've seen our lesson on female reproduction, should look pretty familiar: a hormonal cascade. When puberty comes a-knockin', the hypothalamus starts releasing gonadotropin-releasing hormone, or GnRH, and this tells the anterior pituitary to secrete follicle-stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone into the blood, just like in females. But in females, LH leads to the release of estrogen in the follicles, whereas in males, it spurs the Leydig cells to release testosterone. Meanwhile, the FSH triggers the Sertoli cells to release androgen-binding protein, or ABP. This binds to the testosterone, creating large local concentrations of the stuff, which is ultimately what triggers the production of sperm. The targets of the testosterone are the outermost cells in the tubules, called spermatogonia. They're the stem cells that set the sperm-making process in motion by dividing. And actually, they've been doing that all along, even before puberty. Throughout childhood, a spermatogonia cell uses mitosis to continually divide into two identical daughter cells. So when puberty starts, the testosterone causes them to divide differently. Instead of splitting into two identical spermatogonia cells, they begin producing two distinct spermatogonia. One type of daughter cell, known as a type A cell, stays up near the basal lamina and just keeps dividing, so you never run out of spermatogonia. But the other kind, the type Bs, get pushed down the tubule toward the lumen and turn into primary spermatocytes. These primary spermatocytes then go into meiosis I and form two smaller haploid cells called secondary spermatocytes. They then rush through meiosis II, and their resulting daughter cells total 4 round spermatids. These spermatids now have all of the 23 chromosomes they need for fertilization, but they aren't exactly mobile. If they're ever going to find themselves an egg, they need a way to get around. You need a tail. The process by which a spermatid elongates, grows a tail or flagellum, and officially becomes a mobile sperm is called spermiogenesis. And the whole process takes about 5 weeks, but it's not like it holds anything up because there are plenty more where those spermatids came from. In the end, each primary spermatocyte gives rise to 4 actual sperm, and considering how many spermatogonia are continuously dividing into spermatocytes, it's easy to see how a mature male can crank out 1,500 sperm a second. That's a far cry from all the investment that goes into making a single ovum. Now, obviously, if sperm are going to get anything accomplished, they have to leave the seminiferous tubules that made them, so even once they have tails, they still need a little help getting going. That's why each tubule is surrounded by several layers of myoid cells, which, like smooth muscle, rhythmically contract using peristalsis to squeeze sperm and some fluid secreted by the Sertoli cells through all the twists and turns toward their next destination, the rete testis in the posterior testis. From there, the sperm, although still immobile, leave the testes by way of the epididymis, a long tangled set of tubes behind the testes where they'll spend the next few weeks gaining their mobility. The bulk of the epididymis consists of the enormous duct of the epididymis, which, believe it or not, could be uncoiled to stretch about 6 meters. Though I don't suggest doing that. This duct is full of tiny microvilli called stereocilia, which provide a huge surface area to help reabsorb some extra fluid and help pass along nutrients to feed the idling sperm. It takes sperm nearly 20 days to work their way through this labyrinth, during which time they continue to mature. Once through the duct, they enter the inferior epididymis, where they gain mitochondria, so they'll have energy to swim hard at a moment's notice. At this point, they have all the hardware to swim, but still lack the ability to actually move on their own, a skill kept under wraps until they leave the epididymis and get activated by a series of glandular secretions. When that time comes, during ejaculation, the sperm flow from the epididymis through the vas deferens, a tube that travels up behind the bladder and joins with the duct from the seminal gland to create the ejaculatory duct. The left and right ejaculatory ducts pass into the prostate gland, where they empty into the urethra, which runs from the bladder through the penis and into the outside world. This system of tubes feeding into tubes allows all of the necessary glands to make their contributions to a moving wave of seminal fluid that helps sperm mature and perform their ultimate function, fertilization. The resulting mix of sperm, testicular fluid, and gland secretions, which we call semen, provides sperm with transportation, nutritional energy, chemical protection, and finally activates their motility. So let's take a look at these glands. The seminal vesicles are a pair of small, hollow glands behind the bladder that secrete a yellowish, slightly alkaline fluid that contains coagulating enzymes, fructose, and other things to help nourish and transport sperm. Interestingly, the vesicles also secrete special prostaglandins that help increase sperm success outside the body by decreasing the viscosity of a female's cervical mucus and actually triggering a reverse peristalsis of the uterus that helps draw sperm up the female reproductive tract. Now, the prostate gland encircles the urethra just inferior to the bladder. During ejaculation, it contracts to squeeze its own special secretion into the urethra. This stuff contains mainly citric acid and an enzyme cocktail that helps keep semen liquefied and thus easier to move and swim through. And finally, we have the pea-sized bulbourethral glands below the prostate that secrete a clear mucus that drains into the urethra to clear out any acidic urine prior to ejaculation. Speaking of, by now you may be wondering if we're ever going to get to what's probably the first thing you think of when it comes to the male anatomy. The penis hangs from the perineum between the pubic bone and coccyx. It consists of a shaft that ends in an enlarged tip called the glans penis, surrounded by a fleshy cuff of foreskin. Internally, the penis contains 3 layers of erectile tissues, each wrapped in a layer of dense, fibrous connective tissue. This spongy network is made of connective tissue and smooth muscle that's full of tiny vascular spaces that fill with blood during sexual arousal and make the penis expand and become rigid. The resulting erection is what helps the penis penetrate the vagina. And the fact that we're only now getting around to talking about it here at the end should tell you that, as with the female external genitalia, the penis isn't actually all that important in terms of overall reproductive function. Evolutionarily speaking, it's just a delivery system designed to get male gametes as close as possible to female gametes and reap some payoff for their investments. Now, what that payoff looks like in terms of fertilization is where we're headed next week. But for now, you learned probably all you'd ever care to know about testicular anatomy, the steps of sperm production, and how it's influenced by gonadotropin and testosterone. We also looked at how sperm mature and how they leave the body on a tide of glandular secretions during ejaculation. Thank you to our headmaster of learning, Linnea Boyev, and thank you to all of our Patreon patrons whose monthly contributions help make Crash Course possible, not only for themselves, but for everyone everywhere. If you like Crash Course and want to help us keep making videos like this one, please check out patreon.com/crashcourse. This episode was filmed in the Dr. Cheryl C. Kinney Crash Course studio. It was written by Kathleen Yale, edited by Blake DiPastino, and our consultant is Dr. Brandon Jackson. It was directed by Nicholas Jenkins, edited by Nicole Sweeney. Our sound designer is Michael Aranda, and the graphics team is Thought Cafe.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the Mighty Sperm. Men can produce 1,500 sperm cells per second. That's pretty impressive. They can have 400,000 spermatozoa per ejaculate, and they make millions of sperm over their lifetime. What is the point of sex, biologically speaking? The purpose of male reproduction is to ensure the continuation of the human species. Also, to produce, store, and transport spermatozoa. Here are the gonads, and I'm going to just give you a very quick overview of what we are looking at here. So the term gonads is a generic term that applies to the anatomical location of where gametes are produced in the body. The male gonads are the testes, and the female gonads are the ovaries. Sperm cells, or spermatozoa, are produced in the testes. So these are the testes here. You have 2 of them. If you're a male, you have 2 of them. One on the right and one on the left. Okay. The male external genitalia, you have the scrotum and the penis. The scrotum is a sac-like organ made up of skin and smooth muscle that houses the testes. The penis is the male external excretory and sex organ. The function of the scrotum is to regulate the temperature of the sperm. It does this by contracting these smooth muscle cells, by either contracting or relaxing them to move the testes either closer to or further away from the warm body. I love this product. This product is an underwear that they call Snowballs. The Snowballs cooling underwear is for men, and it has these inserts that are supposed to keep the gonads nice and cool. Overheated testes can cause infertility in males. Several products and procedures are available to help keep your sperm cells cool. This is just one of them, and I do have to say that the Snowballs underwear is at the top of my list just for the name alone. Now let's take a closer look at the penis. The penile opening is the urethra, and it is shared by the urinary tract as well as the reproductive tract. In other words, the urethra is used for urination as well as to deliver semen, which includes sperm. The penis functions as both a reproductive organ and an excretory organ. As a reproductive organ, the penis becomes erect during sexual intercourse in order to deliver semen more effectively into the vagina. Semen travel through the urethra to the tip of the penis, where it is then ejaculated out of the body. Let's take a moment to talk a little bit about male contraception. Hey men, wake up and take control. Birth control. Who is responsible when somebody gets pregnant? Well, it takes two people to make a baby, so the responsibility for that decision goes on both of the parties. It is both partners that are responsible for safe sex, not just the female. Don't let that one-night stand change your life. Think first. Men, it is your responsibility to be in control of your body and of your choice to be a dad or not. It is your life. A baby is forever, and child support is hard. If you lay down and make a baby, you should be able to stand up and be a daddy. Don't get trapped. It is your life, and a baby is forever. Remember, guys, it's your body, your responsibility, your future, and your risk. I want to make sure that everybody is educated on what you can do as a male, or what your male partner can do to assist in making sure that you're not going to become a parent before you are ready. There are 5 different birth control options for men right now. There are a lot more that I think are right around the corner, but the best one would be just abstinence. Abstinence is refraining from sexual intercourse or sexual activity at all. And this is the best way. It's 100% effective, and it will also prevent you from contracting sexually transmitted diseases, which is extremely important. There are condoms as well. Condoms are probably the most known and most popular choice for male contraception. A condom works by creating a physical barrier that prevents the passage of sperm from the penis to the vagina. There's also outercourse. Outercourse is refraining from sexual intercourse, but perhaps exploring other methods of sexual release with a partner. And then there's vasectomy, which is a medical procedure that blocks the passage of sperm from the testes to the urethra, so it never comes out with the semen in the ejaculate in the first place. And then the withdrawal method, otherwise more popularly known as pulling out. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about most of these.
Abstinence means not having sex, right? But what is sex? An intercourse? And what the heck is outercourse? Well, people define sex, abstinence, and outercourse in different ways. For some people, abstinence means not doing any kind of fooling around. No oral sex, vaginal sex, anal sex, nothing. They're abstaining from it all. Not only does this type of abstinence do a great job of preventing pregnancy, it's 100% effective, it also guarantees you won't get a sexually transmitted infection. For some other people, abstinence means not having vaginal intercourse. They do the other stuff, just not the thing that can lead to a pregnancy. All that other stuff is what we mean by outercourse. Outercourse is sex play without the penetration. It's like intercourse without the inner... You get it. Kissing, touching, grinding, massage, masturbation, sex talk, all of that can be lumped into what's called outercourse. Outercourse is also a great method of birth control. As long as no sperm get in the vagina, there's no risk of pregnancy. And if you avoid vaginal, anal, and oral sex, you reduce your risk for sexually transmitted infections as well. Like all methods of birth control, abstinence and outercourse are more effective the longer and better you use them. They require determination, self-control, trust, and good communication. It also helps to know about other ways to protect yourself from unintended pregnancy and STDs, just in case you decide to have intercourse. If you'd like to learn more about outercourse and abstinence, you should check out PlannedParenthood.org. If you're a teen, you might want to look into Teen Talk. There's tons of information and discussions.
Condoms give you protection from pregnancy and STDs in a convenient little package. Just roll one onto your penis before sex to prevent contact with skin and fluids that can spread STDs or cause pregnancy. Condoms are one-time use only, so use a new one every time you have sex. Condoms work great with other birth control methods, like the pill or IUD, for extra pregnancy-preventing power. And unlike other types of birth control, condoms also help protect you from STDs. You can get condoms at most convenience stores, drugstores, community health clinics, and Planned Parenthood health centers. They're inexpensive and sometimes even free. Want to learn more about condoms? Check out PlannedParenthood.org.
It's Friday. It's Friday. Friday, of course, but not just any Friday. It's a very, if you know anything about me, this is the day I wait for a whole year. This is a real day, and it's today. Today is World Vasectomy Day. Yes. 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 So, to celebrate, I've arranged a special Oprah-style surprise for everyone in the audience. Yeah. Yeah, and especially you. Yeah, you got a vasectomy, you got a vasectomy, you got a vasectomy.
And underneath your seats, you'll find a pair of scissors.
Yes! It's funny how they really got a lot less enthusiastic all of a sudden.
Yeah, they did, yeah.
It was like they were like, ah, now they're like, ah.
Since the subject of today's segment is vasectomy, with your permission, Daddy Brad, there's just a couple things I want to just get out of the way.
Go right ahead.
Ejaculation. Sperm. Erection.
Daddy Klein.
Penis. Just give me a second here. Testes. Vas deferens.
What are you doing, man?
You know, I want everybody to have a little chuckle, okay? So we can move on with the segment, all right?
Dude, but you know, when it comes to vasectomies, the most disturbing words are clipped, snipped, and fixed.
Now, while those words are upsetting, they're actually completely appropriate. Because as we all know, vasectomy is simply a fancy medical term for having your cut completely off.
I don't think that's the way it works.
Well, that's what they want you to think. But really, they're after your...
They're not after your... You keep your... At least I think you do.
implants.
So basically, a vasectomy is a 10-minute procedure. It's done here in this very office of mine. We often do it on a Friday, so that way a man can have his vasectomy done in the afternoon, take a half day off from work, recover over the weekend, and back to work on Monday. What we do is we usually give our patients a mild sedative, so it kind of takes a little bit of the anxiety out of the equation. We then use a numbing medicine to make a small little numb area on either side of the scrotum. After that's done, we make a small incision about the width of your pinky, so a little tiny incision. Through that incision, we lift up the vas deferens. It's about the width and dimension of a piece of spaghetti. We place 2 titanium clips on either side and then remove a segment in between those clips. And then we repeat and do it on the opposite side. The discomfort is minimal, so we have to use minimal sedation. walk right out of here. We usually have your wife or girlfriend or somebody take you home, and that's the entire procedure.
Now, despite all the queasiness that guys may feel, a vasectomy is a safe, permanent, and effective method of birth control.
And if you're married, it prevents your wife from having to get a much more dangerous and expensive procedure, a tubal ligation. It also allows her not to have to take birth control that might be less effective or have negative side effects.
In other words, it's a great Mother's Day present. You might get some action, too.
So if you're considering this procedure, there's a few things you should probably think about.
To debunk a lot of the myths, there are three main ones. Number one is, will I have orgasms still after a vasectomy? Yes, if you had them before, you're going to have them afterwards, okay? So orgasms do not change. Number two is, what about my ejaculate or my ejaculate volume? Will that disappear? That's not also another big myth. So ejaculate and ejaculate volume will not change. Most of that volume, believe it or not, comes from your prostate, and it's not sperm. So 99% of it is actually just prostatic fluid, so you'll still have that after the procedure. Third is, will my erections be changed, different, or anything in any which way? Again, if you had good erections before, you're going to have good erections afterwards. Nothing changes outwardly.
If you're one of more than 500,000 American men that choose to have a vasectomy each year, drop us a comment and let us know why.
Yeah, what went into the decision? So that's all for us here from the Dad Labs. Ads?
Yeah.
It's a vasectomy. It's just that one. Did you watch the segment?
And, I mean, I know what the script said. I know what the script said.
Don't on the segment.
Withdrawal is when you pull the penis out of the vagina before ejaculating. That's why it's also called pulling out. Withdrawal keeps sperm out of the vagina so it can't swim to an egg and cause pregnancy. It can be hard to pull out correctly, so it's less effective than other types of birth control. You have to pull your penis completely out of your partner's vagina before any semen comes out, or pregnancy can happen. This takes lots of experience, so you've got to know your body super well and be willing and able to pull out in time, usually right when sex feels the best. Pulling out doesn't prevent the spread of STDs, but using condoms can help protect you and your partners. Withdrawal is free and always available, but there are many more effective birth control methods out there. Your nearest Planned Parenthood Health Center can help you find the best birth control for you.
Okay, great. So I read this article on National Geographic that was published in 2010, written by Christine Delamour, titled "How a Man Produces 1,500 Sperm a Second." Pretty fun stuff. So yeah, and this is an actual picture of spermatozoa. So I made another video looking at some great sperm facts from an article that I read in NBC News. So I'm going to take you to that clip now, and this should be everything you ever wanted to know about sperm and a few things you didn't. Enjoy. Hi, I am on the CBS News website, and I would like to share with you an article that they have called Sperm, 50 Crazy Things That You Should Know. So here it goes. When it comes to sperm, people always seem to have an agenda. Some want to kill sperm cells, some want to buy or sell them, some fret over their failure to get the job done. Why can't we just appreciate sperm for the amazing little wrigglers that they are? After all, without sperm, the world would be a very lonely place. So here are 15 fascinating facts about sperm from Dr. Craig Niedenberger, professor of urology at the University of Illinois at Chicago. Abnormal sperm, that's actually normal. Human sperm making machinery is a bit lazy. How else to explain the fact that 90% of the sperm in a man's ejaculate are deformed? 2 heads, 2 tails, huge heads, pinheads, coiled tails. The list of common deformities is a long one. It's the price of monogamy. Dr. Niedenberger says for those species where more than one male sperm can find itself in a female at the same time, the sperm are much more uniform in appearance. In humans, Joe and Sam's sperm don't usually find themselves in Betty at the same time. Half a teaspoon. That's how much a man typically ejaculates. That isn't much, but for better or worse, it often does get the job done. Sperm wear hard hats. You might not call sperm dapper, but they do wear hats. Well, not really a hat, but an oval-shaped structure called the acrosome. It contains strong chemicals that are released once the sperm attaches to the egg. The chemicals melt the egg's outer surface, drilling a hole so that the sperm can penetrate the egg to release its genetic cargo. Sperm versus semen. Some people use the terms sperm and semen interchangeably, but sperm cells are only one component. Semen also contains substances from the prostate and a pair of rabbit ear-shaped organs inside the pelvis called the seminal vesicles. Sperm cells, which are made in the testes, need lots of high-octane fuel to whip their tails. Luckily for them, and us, sperm get the fuel they need in the form of sugar fructose, which is supplied by the seminal vesicles. Fluid from the prostate contains chemicals that cause semen to liquefy once it's inside the female. Without it, sperm would be locked in place and unable to swim. One testicle is enough. If a guy loses one testicle, the other is generally able to make enough sperm to create a baby. Often, the remaining testicle grows a bit to boost sperm output. Lance Armstrong, shown here, is perhaps the most high-profile person to have lost a testicle due to cancer. He has fathered 5 children since then, 3 from banked sperm, but 2, he says, were conceived naturally. 200 million competitors. It takes only one sperm cell to fertilize a woman's egg, but there's stiff competition for that honor. In fact, the average ejaculate contains 200 million sperm. Best of luck to each of you. The factory never closes. Women are born with all the eggs they'll ever have, but it's different for men. Men produce sperm all day, every day, throughout their entire lives. As men age, their sperm may become a little sluggish and their DNA a bit more fragmented, but the factory never closes. Sperm are tiny. Want to see a sperm cell? Better have a microscope, because sperm are far too tiny to see with the naked eye. How tiny? Each one measures about 0.002 inches from head to tail, or about 50 micrometers. Of course, what sperm lack in size, they more than make up in sheer numbers. Sperm need protection. Sperm start out looking pretty much like any cell in the body, but by the time they're ready to leave the testicle, they have half as much DNA as other cells in the body. That makes them look a bit suspicious to the body's immune system. To keep immune cells from wiping out the invading sperm cells, the testicles employ specialized cells to surround them with a sort of picket fence. To fertilize an egg the old-fashioned way, sperm need to be able to swim. Not so in vitro fertilization. This happens in test tubes. In fact, when IVF or in vitro fertilization techniques use tiny robotically controlled glass straws, like you see here in the picture, to insert a single sperm inside an egg. They sometimes beat the sperm with the glass until it stops moving. The only thing that matters is the DNA inside the sperm. Poor sperm. Which way do we go? Sperm can certainly whip their tails, but many have a hard time swimming in a straight line. In fact, only about half do. The rest swim around in circles or bob along with the motion of the semen. But because so many start their journey, plenty do make it to the egg. And that's despite the fact that the tubes connecting the uterus to the ovaries contain tiny hair cells that beat against the sperm. Ever seen salmon swim upstream? It's a little bit like that. Sperm live for days. How long can a sperm cell live once inside a woman's body? About 2 days. The Y stands alone. Once a sperm fuses with an egg, the chromosomes swap bits of DNA, meaning that each becomes a mashup of mom's and dad's DNA. But there's one exception, the Y chromosome. The Y chromosome has no counterpart with the egg's DNA, so it passes along essentially unchanged from father to son. In fact, a man's Y chromosome looks just like his father's and his father's fathers, and his father's father's fathers, and his father's father's father, and so on, back through generations. Refrigerator testicles? Sexual passion may be hot, but a guy's testicles stay cool, about 7 degrees Fahrenheit cooler than ordinary body temperature. That's just enough for producing healthy sperm. A man's body keeps the ideal testicle temperature with radiator-like veins that pull away heat and muscles in the scrotum that will rise and lower the testicles to bring them closer to the body's warmth or further away. If a guy crosses his legs, his scrotal temperature increases by about 2 degrees. Ditto if he wears briefs. But lots of guys who cross their legs become dads, and Dr. Niedenberger says that the idea that wearing boxers will help boost fertility is probably misguided. 2 months to make sperm. How long does it take to make sperm? About 2 months according to the latest studies. Sperm are being started all the time, just like an assembly line, says Dr. Niedenberger. You don't wait for a truck to finish the assembly line before starting to build another, right? But just like an assembly line, it takes time to go from the start to the end. Thank you, CBS News, for writing this report. Great. The adventure of the sperm. Spermatogenesis is the process by which sperm are produced in the first place. So spermatogenesis begins in the testes, and it takes between 64 to 72 days. The testes makes testosterone, and this is produced by interstitial cells. All right, so let's take a look at the male reproductive system. We talked about the external genitalia. Let's talk a little bit about the inward anatomy. So we have the testes, which is the male gonad. That is where the sperm are produced. From there, the sperm are going to travel and mature as they travel through the epididymis. And we see the epididymis is here. Okay, so the sperm start here, they're produced here, and then they travel to the epididymis. From there, they are going to go through the vas deferens, otherwise known as the ductus deferens. And you also have the seminal vesicles, which are right here. You have the prostate gland, which is here, and the bulbourethral, or the Kelper's gland, which is right here. So the spermatozoa are going to start here, and they're going to make this relatively long journey. And then during ejaculation, they will travel down the urethra and exit the penis. They will exit the penis through the urethral opening here. Semen has a few properties that actually help it survive the female reproductive tract. The female reproductive tract is a very hostile environment for the sperm. So the sperm have to kind of have survival of the fittest and be able to compete with their fellow spermatozoa to be able to fertilize that egg. So in order to combat this hostile environment of the vagina, the semen is a mixture of sperm and accessory gland secretions. The advantage of having these additional secretions is that you have fructose that provides energy for the sperm cells so that they can swim up current. You also have alkalinity. Alkalinity is the opposite of being acidic. So it creates an alkaline environment that helps to combat the acidic environment of the vagina. The semen also inhibits bacterial growth, which is wonderful, and it enhances sperm motility. I hope that you enjoyed today's lecture, and I'll see you in a week.